Welcome to the Sales Lead Dog Podcast, hosted by CRM technology and sales process expert Christopher Smith, talking with sales leaders that have separated themselves from the rest of the pack. Listen to find out how the best of the best achieve success with their team and CRM technology. And remember, unless you are the lead dog, the view never changes.
Welcome to Sales Lead Dog. Joining me for today's episode, I have Lee Weech, Vice President of Sales for Executech. Lee, welcome to Sales Lead Dog.
Appreciate you having me this morning.
It's great to have you here. It's a Friday here in beautiful Denver, Colorado, so it's a great day to talk with you, Lee. Lee, tell me a little bit about Executech.
Yeah, I'd love to. Executech, we're a 25-year-old managed service provider. We were founded here in Salt Lake City, Utah. We have since grown, acquired by a private equity firm, Evergreen. We have 8 locations in 6 states, providing managed services, IT infrastructure, managed security, cybersecurity type audits, things like that. And then we have a whole separate cloud division as well. Nothing but cloud servers, integrations, architecture, anything cloud related.
Yep. Yeah, there's, I think, 2 big areas that I see, my side of the world. It's cloud and it's cybersecurity. Is that the same way for you guys?
Absolutely. I mean, everyone's going to need the infrastructure piece. Business can't run without the computers and the servers and the switches and the firewalls, stuff like that. But where we're seeing a lot of growth is in the cloud and the security pace. It's interesting. Security, I think it's still on the tipping point. A lot of people are discussing, they're talking about security. It's top of mind with the news reports and the different things that are happening, with security and businesses. But it's interesting, they haven't really jumped into the pond, so to speak, from a cost perspective. Whereas in the cloud, I think there's a natural migration to the cloud when servers are getting kind of long on the teeth, getting a little bit old, and they're making that decision on whether to, replace on-premise or to replace in the cloud. A lot of them are making that transition. It's a natural timeline to push into the cloud.
Yeah, I think the security thing, the worst case scenario is you're in that scenario where, crap, we've been hacked, we're being held ransom, whatever. That stuff happens. And it's horrible to go through that experience. You don't want to be that person. But I think if you end up where you have a friend or someone who's going through that, that's when it's like, crap, I need to take this serious.
Yeah, we've had a long time phrase. It started probably 20 years ago or so, where backups are the holy grail of IT.
Yeah.
And we really take the backup serious. And whether that's having an on-prem device like a NAS as your initial storage, and then having a cloud option on the back end of that, or just having the cloud, whatever's important to the client and the speed of their operation. But when you have your backups and they're working and they're working, you've tested them, you can kind of disregard some of those ransomware attacks, but the software that's available now to prevent the cybersecurity and the hacking and all that other stuff, it's worth its weight in gold. I call it the sleep well at night service and software.
Yeah. And what AI is bringing to that space too is amazing.
Going back to your security, AI is kind of interesting. It really makes people's lives easier. Your work's easier. Hey, transcribe this paragraph for me, whatever the case may be. But a lot of people don't realize that ChatGPT, as great as it is and how easy it is to use, if you say any corporate private information or the way your company does business, whatever you say pertaining to your business now is out there. It's on the World Wide Web, essentially. Yeah. And now your competitors or anybody can go in and search for your company name and pull up information about I'm on the sales side, right? So I don't want to give them any trade secrets of how we price anything out or, build me a quote or anything like that, because ultimately all our competitors can go in there and find it. So, we're a big fan of AI, but we like to make sure it's kind of quarantined. Right. The doors are shut. It's in, the Microsoft space with Copilot, those kind of type situations. So you really need to do a kind of a data governance, audit almost, and make sure that stuff's taken care of.
Yeah, you bet. Lee, when you look back over your career and you've had a pretty significant journey to where you are today, what are the three things that have really driven you to the level of success that you've achieved?
The MSP space is different, from a sales side. It's not a widget. It's not a software. There's a very human touch to what we do in sales when it comes to a managed services. I use the analogy that people are trusting you to watch their baby. It's literally their baby of the organization, and they have to trust the salesperson. They have to trust the technicians. They have to trust the business. So in my life, just as a human, it's kind of who I am. Some of the three core things that I really kind of hold my truths are honesty. Sometimes, the saying brutally honest, sometimes you can be soft with your honesty, but you need to be honest with people. And if you can do something, you can do it. If you can't do it, you don't do it. And there's been plenty of times in my career here at Executech where I tell them, yeah, you don't need this. And they look at you kind of crazy. Like, I can't believe you actually said that. But it's like, nah, that's a little, that's a Rolls Royce and you only need a Lexus, type scenario.
Yeah.
So honesty is one. Showing up is a big one. Not only in MSP world, but previous lives world, multiple stories of driving through the snow here in Utah to be at a meeting at 9 o'clock in the morning. And, they look at you again, like you're crazy for being there. Like, you actually showed up, just being present, recent story, I was down in Southern Utah, had a 3.5 hour drive home, and there was an association meeting, later on that afternoon, and it was an hour past my house. I didn't really want to go, honestly, but I went. Nope, you got to show up. And I ended up sitting next to a gentleman that needed IT help, and now they're a significant client of ours. So just showing up is a big deal. And then the third one kind of relates to number one, but transparency. Really let people know. The founder of Executech, Eric Montague, I was on a call with him with a big time client of ours, became a client, I should say. And they asked him a question, and the question from the owner of that business was, what's not working for Executech? What do you need to fix? And he didn't even hesitate. He immediately answered the question and gave him like 2 examples of what wasn't working at Executech, and this is what we're doing to fix it, and this is what we're working on. So that was a real eye-opening for me, even though that was part of my core values. Just to see it live in action from someone that's been highly successful was real eye-opening for me.
That's incredible. That's a great story. I'm a big believer in that too. People can smell when you're full of BS, right? They can smell it. They know. And so all you're doing is you're just digging a hole for yourself. It might work in the short term, but over the long term, that's really hard to keep that up. And so, yeah, I love that.
Yeah, and you can't, if you're white lying or you're telling partial truths, now you can't remember who you told the partial truth to, who you told so just stop, right?
Yeah.
Just stop, reevaluate things, and especially from the sales side. And you said it, very eloquently, is they can smell it.
Yeah.
They know. I mean, all these business owners, the men and women that are making financial decisions for organizations, this isn't their first rodeo.
No.
They go through these things all the time.
Yep.
They're looking for that human connection. And as I mentioned, do they trust you? That's the biggest thing. Do they trust you? So if you're kind of hemming and hawing and you're kind of telling partial truths, you're just digging. You're literally digging.
Yeah. What was the best thing about your first sales job?
First sales job? It's actually a negative, but helps me in a positive light.
All right, there you go. I'll take it.
Yeah. So right out of college, I had a moonlighting job at a car dealership. So I kind of watched car sales and their processes, follow-ups, stuff like that. But what I consider my first true sales job, I was working in the transportation industry for a freight forwarder that served the Hawaiian Islands. And one of the things that I would have been a lot better at it now with better tooling.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have a CRM. We didn't have a way to track what businesses, how much they were, shipping with us on a weekly basis, reports. those kind of type things. So I felt like I was really floundering in there. And we would get the what I call bill of ladings, and I would flip through the bill of ladings, try to find the names that seemed familiar, really kind of old school, if you will,
Yeah.
doing all that. So that really taught me moving forward how to stay a little more organized when it comes to things. And if you have a tool, great, use it. If you don't have a tool, how can you still be organized without the greatest, options given to you by a business?
Yeah, that's a great, I like that one a lot, that because it is all about those lessons learned, those ones that you carry forward the rest of your career.
Yeah. And then the other one, I will say, the other story that popped into my head from a sales side, I dabbled in the car sales world, not very long, maybe 6 months, right out of college. Let's see how this goes kind of thing. And I remember there was a gentleman looking at a used car, and he was negotiating, and he wanted a better price, of course.
Mhm.
And I remember our general sales manager, Mark, said to me, go out there and tell him the price is blank, take it or leave it type scenario. And that's the first time in my life that I've really been put in that situation.
Yeah.
And I was looking at him like, you got to be kidding me. Like, I'm going to lose this thing over $500, like your mind's just racing, racing, racing.
Yeah.
And he looked me dead in the face and he said, go hit him right between the eyes with the number. Just say it strongly, politely, but authoritatively.
Yep.
Hit him between the eyes with the number. Okie dokie, all right. And, you ended up selling it because the guy wanted the car, truck, whatever it was.
Yep.
But the story and the lesson learned of sometimes going back to the truth thing, right? Sometimes you just have to hit them with it. They're not going to like it, or they might love it. You don't know, but here it comes and we can deal with it.
Exactly. Again, it's a different type of transparency and honesty, but it's got to be a win for both sides, right? If you're constantly putting yourself in a weak position, eventually you're going to go out of business. Like you have to be able at some point stick to your numbers.
Well, especially in today's day and age, people have an idea what things cost.
Yeah.
They know how much a couch costs. They know how much a car costs. Whatever they're buying, that's a higher ticket item, refrigerator, whatever it is. So you can research what the profitability is on some of these things and what the going rates are. So, if a sales guy tells me on a, say a $2,000 refrigerator that you can't find a better deal below $3,000, they're lying to you.
Yeah.
And then, all right, we're done. You're leaving. It's like I just can't deal with that, is the scenarios.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. So what were some of the key lessons or additional key lessons you took away from those early sales jobs before you got into leadership?
Geez, again, I don't know why my mind goes negative, but I think of the failures, that really kind of shape who you are, not only as a human, but as a sales professional or professional in general. I'll readily admit that I kind of skated through some things. I didn't give not even 80% effort on some of the jobs that I had. And it cost me a couple of jobs. I was removed from one or two positions because of a lack of urgency, a lack of follow through, a lack of attention to detail, all of those things that I really wish I had learned earlier in my life. Even as a high school senior, have a part-time job where you have the accountability to show up, or, a lot of those things, it's hand to mouth. You can't really tell people. You can tell them, but there's action of where that really is. So a lot of those lessons really shaped kind of who I am. And, you kind of have an epiphany, or I had an epiphany, when these things are happening. Like, I have to change me.
Yeah.
I have to change fundamentally who I am. I think I am who I am as a core, but I'm not really projecting that. I'm not really carrying that in my business life. Personal life, absolutely. Professional life, I'm not really showing all the stars. And I really had, this is 2013, 2014, 2015. I really had to take a hard look at myself, not going to lie to you. It was let's go drive up into the mountains, have a heart to heart, come to Jesus type moments, what are you doing? If you continue down this path, your kids are only going to be able to, you're only going to I'll say this again. You're only going to be able to afford blank for your kids if you continue down this path. You have to change. And that really is what set me forward. Probably 2016 was where I really started on this path that got me to where I am today.
I love how real you're being there. It is, we learn way more from falling on our face. And those hard lessons, those are the things that are truly transformative. You know, those are the things that are going to either, you're going to suck it up and really start pushing forward in the direction you need to be going in, or you're going to stay on the ground and just kind of be miserable.
Yeah.
And now that's why, to me, that's the stuff that is most important, are the failures, in my opinion.
Absolutely. You know, anybody can, be born into family money, and you're just given family money. And a lot of people take that and run, and, they make even better. They go further, but there's a lot of people in this world, entrepreneurs, people who are running businesses, CEOs, COOs, CFOs. They weren't handed a golden spoon, and they had those tough lessons, whether it was childhood watching mom and dad struggle, or whether it's, they had a high paying job and they were relieved of that job and had to fall on their face and like, oh man, how am I actually going to feed myself? And I only have $20 for gas to last 3 days, but how do I continue my job? Those struggles really define a people, in my opinion. They really define who you are, and you can see it later on in life, the people that are really, that go after it.
Oh yeah, totally. It's in my world, I'm very connected to the entrepreneur network here in Colorado, and you meet all kinds of people. And there are some people that achieve incredible success, but you look at them like, this person's not very smart. Like how some people are just really lucky. They get into that sweet spot at the right time, and just stuff falls in place for them, and they're super successful. I've met other people that are super, super smart. You think like, God, this person's going to achieve incredible success, and they have nothing but failure after failure. It's incredibly, I think it's almost impossible to predict those outcomes.
Absolutely.
But there are some common threads through all this stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and that in the ones that I see, the ones that the kind of more the middle, I think what I described are kind of the extremes, but the people in the middle that are achieving that 20%, 10 to 20% growth every year, they're working their tails off. They've got a vision, they've got core values, and they're setting those milestones out in front of themselves, and they're working their tail off to get there.
Yeah, and I'll add
I really like being around.
Yeah, I'll add a little bit to it. You use the phrase working your tail off. That doesn't mean 60, 70-hour week. It doesn't mean that. It means you're very strategic, and you align yourself with people, and you're doing the right things, whether it's focus groups, whether you're in a 20 group, whether your life is scripted out from a calendar perspective. You're working your tail off to put yourself in the right situations at the right time, or with the right information to make the right decision at the right time to be able to pivot. As I use the analogy, anybody can drive a car fast, straight. Anybody can go fast, straight.
Yeah.
But when the curves start happening, what do? Do you know when to brake? Do you know when to hit the throttle? Do you know when to take the apex? That's where in the business world, you'll really start to see who's going to shine, is watching those decisions.
Oh, big time, big time. It's so true. And it's having that ability, that willingness to pivot, to say, hey, this isn't working. What do we need to adjust? Where do we need to, where do we turn? Which direction are we going to go in now? Because what we're doing isn't going to work, or it's not working. We're not getting where we need to be.
Yeah, I'm a big, inside Executech, I'm kind of known as the idea guy, and I like to brainstorm. I like to throw things at the wall, write them down on dry erase board, all of those things. I don't have the answer of how to do it. I haven't planned this thing out, steps 1 through 10, but I'll brainstorm with you, and I'll come up with ideas based on my experience of being in the managed service provider sales space for almost 8 years now, and 125 clients that have come over to Executech under my watch. You have those knowledge things, and brainstorm, but you got to put yourself in the room with brighter minds. and people that you trust to help brainstorm to make these decisions. So I have a sales leadership council, if you will. There's two other sales guys with me. And then we have our director of marketing joins us on it as well, because I value their opinions. You know, and if I say something stupid or I say something crazy or off the wall, I need to trust these people to say, you know, you're missing the mark a little bit. I understand where you're going. I understand what you want to accomplish, but you're not thinking of the following two things. You know, you have to. If not, you know, I honestly think people are doomed to failure if they try to keep it all to themselves.
I agree. What's the hardest part about being a sales leader for you?
For me, it's I want everybody to succeed. I want the receptionist to be the best. I want finance to be the best, operations, everybody just to be happy, living life, paying their mortgages, vacations with their family. I'm one of those type of individuals. You know, I want everyone to succeed. So from a sales leadership perspective, having so many people kind of reporting to me, or a better way of saying that is using me when things get tough or they have questions. It's how much time do I have to be on meetings with, you know, people outside of what I'm currently doing? How do I space myself out? How do I pivot from being at an association meeting that ends at 1 o'clock, and I know that my salesperson needs me at 1:30 to be on a Teams call with a $5,000 prospective client? How do you balance that? Do you cut out early to the association? Do you stay to network? So, you know, a lot of those things really take a lot of balance. I'm really trying to understand the importance of everything that you're trying to be at and prioritizing which ones are best.
Yeah. What's the best part about your job?
Watching people succeed, as I mentioned a little while ago. I mean, we had a tremendous second quarter in net new revenue growth, 133% of the quota, you know, for the entire group of salespeople here at Executech. And just watching, you know, the deals being closed and the different names attached to them, and, you know, all different regions are adding revenue to their business. It's just, it's exciting to me, you know, and again, I said it, but I know that's life-changing for people. Stability comes from the sales world of selling deals, and the commissions on the back end of selling a deal is vital for what these people do. And, you know, again, I'm a people person, so getting to know them and their kids, and, you know, having to fly up to Seattle to bring their father-in-law home, or their kid is in the hospital. And, you know, sometimes it's just picking up the phone and before we start business, how is your daughter doing? How is your father-in-law? How did that work out? You know, that's rewarding to me.
That's awesome. Lee, you strike me as a person who leads from the front, which I think is really important. I think it's a critical element to be a successful leader. But that can also be it just can wipe you out sometimes. How do you keep up your energy? How do you stay motivated?
That's a very good question, and it's something that we've been thinking about, or I personally been thinking about, kind of brainstorming with some of my confidants. You know, that, as I mentioned, is how do you do that when you lead by the front? You know, I still talk to prospective clients. I have my own book of business that I'm chasing, you know, for new deals. So finding that balance of what to do, but sometimes you don't. Sometimes it does just wipe you out, you know, and I think maybe that's a critical piece to understand, is sometimes it's going to be difficult physically, you know, driving everywhere, popping from one place to the other. But sometimes you just have to be on for 7 hours, and it's taxing. I took my daughter, Kara, up to the Utah Bankers Association annual meeting. So she, you know, she was in the booth with me for, you know, part of Sunday, part of Monday, walking around. And something that she and I talked about was the always on part. You can't just sit down on a chair and look grumpy. You can't. You know, you always have to be on. So when you're a sales leader and you're leading from the front, when you have people, you know, there are times that I'm going to disagree with something. You know, we might be on a call with all, you know, 12 of us on a call, and I disagree with what somebody's saying. It's not fundamentally wrong. You know, it's not going to burn the house down wrong, but how do you tactfully, help that person realize the other side? But I agree with you. It's taxing.
Yeah.
Sometimes I come home, being real with you and transparent. I'll come home and I sit on the couch and all of a sudden it's 9 o'clock and I don't even know where 3 hours went. And mentally you're just resetting at
Yeah.
that point.
Oh,
But
yeah.
then I guess one of the other things I do, and I didn't really put it into this context until you formulated or gave me the question, was, and it's cliche, but take time for you.
Mhm.
Whatever you is. If you like to do woodworking, go do woodworking. If you like to go sit in your car up in the mountains, go do that, right? And carve out time. And sometimes, this is going to be a little interesting, but sometimes you have to say no.
Yeah.
Saying no is difficult when you lead from the front. And sometimes it's, I can't do it at 3,
Yeah.
but I can do it at 4 or at 9 o'clock tomorrow. So I always try to give them options when I say no, but sometimes you just have to.
Yeah. The hardest thing for me on my journey in leadership is delegation. That I always thought like, I'm up front. I need to do as much as I can. But that's a hard lesson to learn too, that, we all have our limits, but I'm also not helping my team behind me. If I'm the one doing everything or doing the hardest stuff, I'm not giving them opportunities to grow. Have you ever encountered scenarios like that?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I had a couple pop into mind, and I'll leave some of the privacy details out of it. But there's been times where some of our salespeople have questioned some of the decisions. Not question in a real negative, I'm leaving the company question, but more, that's interesting. I don't understand blank, and they're talking to me about it. And I like, well, I can give you my opinion, or kind of where from the seat I'm at, I can give you a little 2 cents, but you need to go ask. You need to go ask. I can ask for you, but you need to go ask. And like you said, it gives people who haven't had that opportunity to grow and how to learn how to handle difficult situations or potential touchy situations. But if we're all on the same team, we're all trying to accomplish the same goal, sometimes you just have to tell people, I don't agree with that. Here are the 3 reasons why. And these are my suggestions of a corrective action.
Yeah. And I think it's also that it's important that your team knows like, hey, I need you go do this, give it a shot. I've got your back. I'll be here if you need me, but you need to go do that. And I think that's the other important part is making sure the team knows I've got your back.
Yeah. And sometimes you have to be willing to take the arrows.
That's right.
You have to, you as a leader, you're gathering the information from your people, whoever they might be. You're gathering the information, put it in clear, concise sentences. Say it in, if you can say it in 3 sentences, don't say it in 12. Just be concise with what you're saying, but be prepared. Here come some arrows. They're not going to just take this laying down, because they're invested in it. They're emotional in it. It's their decision, whatever those scenarios are. So you need to be able to be constructive, but firm and transparent of the reasons why you feel something's not going to be successful.
Right. I think building a culture of honesty and transparency, like you've done at Executech, begins in the hiring process. How do you hire to your core values?
Yeah, so there's 2 things that's interesting when it comes to hiring. So typically, I'm not the initial wave of interviews. I get them when it's kind of dwindled down to 2, 3, 4 options. Maybe a little unique, maybe it's a little bit different, but it's who I am as a person. I have about 3 questions written down of that I want to ask them. Not your traditional interview, just whatever comes to mind, kind of time questions. And I want to have a conversation with them, especially in the managed service provider space, because that's what you're going to be doing. When we sell, there's no order of questions. I tell people all the time, I can get the information to build a quote in under 3 minutes. That's just rattling me off information. The next 45 minutes is where you're really actually going to earn your money and, to show how good you are. So from a hiring, I want to see the people who want to work for our organization. How can they have off the cuff conversations, spitballing questions. How do they handle those kind of type situations is what I really, really want to know. Because if you're trying to sell me, you're trying to sell them and they're going to sniff it out, as we talked kind of at the very beginning of this. So that's one thing that I do on it. The other thing from a hiring, once they're hired, once we've depicted or we came to a conclusion, actually, sometimes it does come up in the interview, depending if they ask, but typically it's when they're actually on board. I'll be very, very transparent with them from an earnings perspective. Right now you're looking at X, year 2, you're looking at X, year 3, you're looking at Y, kind of type situation, and be very transparent with them. Can you sell $400,000 a net new revenue business and start making great money at Executech? Absolutely. It's possible. Likely? No, but it's possible, right? So that type of transparency and honesty from a hiring perspective, I just want to make sure people are on the right footing. Right. This is a long-term hire for us. This isn't a short-term, smash and grab income, leave in 2 years type situation.
Yeah. CRM, do you love it or do you hate it?
I love it for certain things and I hate it for other things.
I think that's the standard answer I get.
It is. I mean, I'm a sales guy, right?
Yep,
I want to be talking and I want to be having conversations. I don't want to be bogged down on having to input data and kind of know where it is. So from a leadership perspective, whatever the organization does for their, purpose in life, is understand who's using the CRMs. Understand what they may or may not like to do. Try to streamline it as much as possible. That's what we've done here at Executech. We use a CRM, HubSpot, and we've streamlined it. So, when they're working through a deal, when they're kind of going through the stages, some of it's automatic. It will automatically kick it to the next stage. When you send a quote, it automatically kicks it. But you have to go in there and mark it. One is actually auto flagged as, no, actually, I take that back. One is not auto flagged. But you have to go in there and do certain things, and updates and make sure the revenue number is right. So I love it from a leadership perspective. It gives me an idea of what people are working on. It gives me an idea of the potential revenue that's out there. It gives me visibility on the size of the deals that they're working on. So from a leadership perspective, would it help if I made a phone call? Would it help if I sent an email on behalf, those type situations? But it's a necessary evil for sure. But it's something that the better you get at it, the more you use it, the more you do it in your daily life, it can really help you out.
You had a magic wand where you could wave it and fix one thing or add one thing to your CRM. What would it be?
Our CRM capacity? I wish there was a little more automation in it. We can do the automation. Where my mind went was doing drip campaigns for maybe lost deals. Maybe at 12 months we do it. We just have to build it. Not terribly difficult, but there's some time that you have to take touching the CRM to make sure it's done right. I wish it was just a little more. Call it Fisher Price of the world, where it's just 3 steps versus 10 steps.
Yeah. That's always a big one. I come across that a lot. That, from my perspective, CRM is at a point where the way people have been using CRM last 20 years, over the next 3 years, it's going to be fundamentally different with the advent of AI and how AI is coming into play. I know some of the stuff that Microsoft is working on. I know Salesforce is investing a lot as well, but Microsoft is really the leader when it comes to AI and leveraging it within tools like CRM. Some of the stuff that they're doing, it's absolutely mind-boggling. And I think it's going to see a real transformation around, not just automation, but to where it's actually making your data actionable. One of the things that I've seen in my world is this, for years, it's always been about customer 360. We have to have 360-degree view of the data. Well, but that data is just sitting there. So yeah, I can see 360-degree views of my customer, which is a myth. Nobody can. They might get close, but it's me as a salesperson. Okay, I've got this data. You're leaving it up to the salesperson to figure out what to do. What's my next step? What's my next action? Where's these hidden opportunities where I can grow revenue for my business? What's coming is, having CRM actually serving that stuff up to your sales team where they're actually driving action. And do you find that as a sales leader, would that be a dream of yours? Where CRM is really driving things for your team instead of your team having to figure it out on their own?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like I said, the automation part, with AI, can they take, I'm going to emails, can they take email language that a specific person use and then draft emails on behalf of you, tee them up, maybe they put them in a queue, it doesn't send it automatically, or if you're okay with it, you do send it automatically, but queue them up in your language, your wording, your closing, your opening, all of that for these type things. One of the things that I was thinking about too is we talk about this with my director of marketing and how nice would it be to know when people that work at your current client take a job at another client, and there's software out there that you can buy that's going to scrub the LinkedIns of the world and give you that data. Yeah, I know it's out there, right?
Yep.
But how cool and easy would it be if that was integrated in as a native feature inside of a CRM? And maybe it's out there and we haven't come across it, right? So I'll put that little caveat. Maybe I'm just not aware of it right now, but to give you flags. Hey, by the way, Betty Smith is not at company A. She's at company M now. You might want to reach out.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
Kind of cool.
Yeah. Yeah, big time. Lee, thank you for coming on. We're in our time here in Sales Lead Dog. Thanks for coming on the show and chatting with me. I really appreciate it. People want to reach out, connect with you, Lee. If they want to find out more about Executech, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, I appreciate you having me. Great conversation. You make it really easy. So I appreciate your time and effort you put into this. To reach me at Executech, it's really easy. Obviously, I'm on LinkedIn, where you can find me on the LinkedIn. And then my email address is very easy. It's just lee@executech.com. Feel free to reach out if I can help you or brainstorm with you or just discuss a issue situation you're having and you want some insight. I'd be more than happy to help whoever needs some.
That's awesome, Lee. Thank you. We will have all that information in our show notes. So if you didn't catch that, no worries. Just go to impellercrm.com/sales lead dog, where you'll get the show notes for this episode, get Lee's contact information, as well as access to our 100+ episodes of Sales Lead Dog. So be sure to check that out. Subscribe if you haven't already done so. You get all our future episodes. Lee, thanks again for coming on Sales Lead Dog, and welcome to the Sales Lead Dog Pack.
Thank you so much.
As we end this discussion on Sales Lead Dog, be sure to subscribe to catch all our episodes. On social media, follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. Watch the videos on YouTube, and you can also find our episodes on our website at impellercrm.com/Sales Lead Dog. Sales Lead Dog is supported by Impeller CRM, delivering objectively better CRM for business, guaranteed.